morning, Tri-Cities. It's Tuesday, and it's time for another Coffee with Karl. Today is the next series in our 22nd annual Economic Outlook series for TRIDEC. And today we are going to talk about our partners at all of our local ports and economic development. So I'll go through and introduce everyone. I'll start off with Tim Arntzen, who is the CEO of the Port of Kennewick. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Karl.
Thanks for joining us. Next up is Stephen McFadden. Stephen's the Director of Economic Development and Marketing for Port of Pasco. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Karl. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Thanks for being on. And Miles Thomas is the Director of Economic Development and Government Affairs at the Port of Benton. Good morning, Miles.
Good morning, Karl. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Good to see you. Well, as usual, we talk about coffee or coffee mugs. So this is a company that's a great local company that relocated here a few years ago. If I tip it, I'll spill it, but it's Cascade Natural Gas. You know, for Coffee with Karl, we were pretty open, like, hey, anybody wants to give us a mug, we'll talk about your company. And Cascade's a great economic development partner. You know, of course, when we're working on a lot of our industrial opportunities for companies to come to town, Cascade is one of the first calls that we make to make sure that we can supply natural gas for some of those industrial uses. So that's my coffee mug this morning. Tim, what do you got for us?
Well, I've got two of them. See if we can hold this up. It says, what's it say? Chicken Whisperer. Tana brought that for me this morning because my wife and I have 8 chickens. I fought her off for 7 years to not get chickens, and then finally had to capitulate last year. So that's one of them. And then the other I wanted to show you is a mug that my daughter got me. You can see she had it engraved with a jet boat on it.
Oh yeah.
I'm a jet boater, and Karl, since you're from Lewiston, I thought you'd get a kick out of this. One of the
awesome
jet boat capitals of the world.
Oh, that's really cool. Have you guys had a chance to take your boat out during COVID? Or
not yet this year, but we always go into Hell's Canyon at least twice.
Yeah.
That'll be soon.
You bet. That's awesome. Stephen, how about you? You got a mug or a coffee story for us this morning?
Well, you know, since I'm the new kid on the block, I'm repping for the brand Port of Pasco here, and drinking a fresh brewed coffee from the break room. But being the new kid on the block, I'm open to definite recommendations for all the local roasters. So send them my way. Love to support small business.
That's awesome. There's some good ones out there. Maybe Miles has a recommendation. Do you have a coffee or mug story for us, Miles?
Oh, always. I'm trying to represent all the port districts this morning. I stopped by and got a new coffee mug from Kagan Coffee and Crepes in Richland this morning. And they actually get their coffee from Rockabilly Roasting Co. that is in downtown Kennewick, just around the corner from Tim's office. And they actually started their first cafe in a drive-through in the Port of Pasco district.
Awesome.
Wow.
Nice. Well, I'm digging through, like, looking for a mug so I can tell a story on, you know, Fridays, but Miles, that was a good one, man. You totally, I think you won our coffee or mug story this morning. Nice tie-in for everybody. Well, if you're watching on Zoom, we will take questions. You can use the question and answer box at the bottom, and we'll work your questions into our conversation. If you're on social media, you can ask your question in the comment section, and we'll get to those too. We're going to go one by one, give everybody about 7 minutes to go through a video or a presentation of their port and some of the projects that they're working on. And then we'll get into that question and answer session in the second part of our hour. So let's go to Tim first. And I think, Tim, we're going to play a video for you for the first part, and then you've got a few prepared remarks.
Please, thank you.
Okay, we'll ask Tracy to go ahead and start the video. Thanks. I think she's working on it. There we go.
Economic development is the Port of Kennewick's mission. We work.
It's good, Tracy. We could hear it.
I think it might have paused. Oh, here she goes.
To foster jobs, build infrastructure, and enhance the quality of life in the Tri-Cities and surrounding region. The Port of Kennewick is governed by a 3-member board of elected commissioners. During 2020, the Port of Kennewick continued engaging in transparent urban planning, working to revitalize Kennewick's historic waterfront district and constructing a regional town center in place of the former Vista Field Airport. On Clover Island, the port and its partners have been working to add public amenities, improve the shoreline, and create access to the Columbia River. And this past year prompted more people to use the Clover Island Marina, boat launch, and shoreline trails than ever before. Understanding the desire for expanded waterfront recreation, the port and its partners continued working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to design for restoration of the Clover Island shoreline. Nearby, the port and its partners worked to bring additional improvements and new businesses to the Columbia Gardens Wine and Artisan Village. Early last year, the port finished construction of a fourth winery building and additional parking areas. That effort brought Cave B Estate Winery and Gordon Estate Winery tasting rooms to the Columbia Gardens. Those businesses were excited to join the Monarca Palencia Wine Company and Bartholomew Winery. The port also added a shade structure, lighting, and seating improvements to the Columbia Gardens Food Truck Plaza. Columbia Gardens is now home to a cluster of permanent food trucks offering a variety of cuisine. The wineries and food trucks are open, and the Columbia Gardens Wine and Artisan Village is evolving into a destination area with inspiring artworks, great food, wonderful wines, and a recreational path, all nestled alongside a scenic nature pond. And by this summer, we will have finalized a community-driven master plan for the next decade of port investments within Kennewick's historic waterfront district. At Vista Field, the port continued working to create a vibrant, pedestrian-focused development which features mixed-use neighborhoods and urban lifestyle amenities. With financial support from City of Kennewick, Benton County, and Benton PUD, the first phase of Vista Field infrastructure has been completed, including streets, sidewalks, lighting, landscaping, a pond, fountains, plaza, and meandering streamside path. The port is now working to create an owners association and prepare lots in the central 20 acres. Parcels will be sold to the private sector for commercial, retail, and residential development, and the proceeds will help fund future phases of infrastructure until the entire 103-acre site plan is complete. And while the historic waterfront district and Vista Field redevelopment have been our main areas of focus, the port had also partnered with both West Richland and the City of Richland on economic benefit and public safety projects. The Port of Kennewick will continue serving as an economic development catalyst throughout its 485 square mile district. And just as it has done since its founding in 1915, the port will foster partnerships and implement creative work plans which address evolving community needs. The Port of Kennewick. We're working for you.
It's a really nice video, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you, I think you said you had, wanted to give a little more detail on some of that for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. This is going to be a busy year for us. I kind of liken it to the bear that's hibernating. Feels like we've been hibernating all winter. And now that the good weather is here and maybe some of the COVID restrictions are loosening up a bit, I think all of us at the Port of Kennewick are really wanting to get out and stretch our legs. And we have a pretty ambitious to-do list in front of us for 2021. One of which is going to be continuing on with the Vista Field project. And, really, really soon, within probably the next couple of weeks, another month, we will be able to open the phase 1 development so people can walk through and drive through. We've spent $5-6 million putting in infrastructure. It includes a couple roads through there, the main road that cuts through from Grand Ridge to Deschutes, sidewalks. We've got the water feature that will be firing up soon. So once we turn the streets over to the city of Kennewick, we can quote unquote open the site and people can drive through and take a look at it, walk through. I find that I go out there at least once a month just to kind of check things out. And also it's a really interesting area. So I'm kind of feeling the vibe. It keeps drawing me back in, and I hope others will feel the same way. So we're making good progress there, but there's still quite a bit to do. And, you know, the public always asks, when do you have the first building going up? And the answer right now is not yet. We're getting closer. It's a massive project. You see that it's over, you know, it's 103 acres overall, and you take that thing down in bite-sized chunks. We've got about 15 acres more or less of dirt now that would be opened up for coming soon. We can sell the parcels and see some development. And, you know, I kind of fall into the trap of, gee, we'll have residential over here and we'll have commercial over there, but it's zoned urban mixed use, meaning you mix it all up like some of the cooler communities around the country where you can have, theoretically, you can have some housing and then you can have a little corner shop tucked right in there. We have it slated for some live work units. So for example, a professional can have his or her office downstairs, and then upstairs you have a loft where you live and you kind of blend into the fabric of the community. You see things torn up down on Columbia Park Trail in Richland. We're helping the city of Richland with that project. We funded that. Then bouncing back over to the wine village in East Kennewick along the waterfront. That's been one of our stronger performers, even in the COVID pandemic. The food trucks have just been rocking and rolling like crazy. I mean, their business has stayed very, very strong. And then the wineries are coming back now that the governor has allowed us to kind of get back in. So that's been a strong point for us. And we do have other projects scattered around our district. We do some things out in West Richland with the folks there. So I don't have a clock in front of me, but, you know, I want to be cognizant of the time for my colleagues. So I'll just kind of pause and see if there's anything further that I would want to say at this point, or whether we pass the torch to our colleagues.
Let's go ahead and pass the torch, Tim. I appreciate you're cognizant of the time. That's a great job. And I do have some questions we'll come back to after
Thank you.
Give everybody a chance to present here. So next up is Steve McFadden from Port of Pasco. And Stephen, I think Tracy has some slides you want to share a little bit with us.
Yep, you're right.
Okay, let's go ahead and Tracy can start those slides for us. There we go.
Right. So Tracy, if you want to move us to the first one. Carl, I want to thank you for inviting me to participate in this, and the entire TRIDEC team. And the other thing that's really important is I'm the new kid on the block. I joined the Port of Pasco in November, coming down from Adams County, where I spent 6 years as the county's director of economic development. My background in economic development follows a 28-year career as a community journalist and a publisher. And I was always involved in chambers of commerce and economic development organizations. And this seemed like a great midlife career change. 3 years ago, I got certified as a certified economic developer, and really love this work, whether we're helping small business or recruiting a large industry, or, you know, supporting our existing companies. The Port of Pasco has 3 fabulous port commissioners. Commissioner Jim Clinworth is currently the chair of the board. Vicki Gordon is the vice chair, and then Gene Reichman. And collectively, the 3 of them bring a tremendous amount of experience to the table, including the wine industry, agriculture, insurance, and background around real estate, as well as Commissioner Reichman's work with the PUD. All of them offer great strengths to us in the economic development mission. Next slide. So the Port of Pasco serves Franklin County, the vast majority of Franklin County. The only portion that we do not include in our boundary is the portion served by the Port of Colotis. And so we're at the confluence of the Snake and Columbia rivers. We have a number of different development areas, 7 of them at Big Pasco, the wharf, and the airport industrial park. Even though it's COVID, we're enjoying our best occupancy rate. Our properties team, Myra and Audrey and Tara, have us at 91% occupancy, which is the best since 1998. And you can see on this map, our newest site is up to the north at the Ryman Industrial Center, and then you can see the rest of our development areas in the years that we began to develop those. Next slide. So in talking about what are the impacts for COVID-19 over the last year, this is where you get to see it for the Port of Pasco primarily, is the impacts at the Tri-Cities Airport. They set records for several years in terms of employment. And then in 2020, as a result of the COVID shutdowns, we had dropped to 189,000 employments. Operationally, the port and the airport made significant budget cuts to account for that lost passenger revenue. But we're optimistic that those employments are going to continue to increase as the pandemic starts to be muted a little bit at a time. We're also grateful for the Federal CARES Act funds, which have allowed us to continue to make our bond payments on the terminal expansion, which is very important, both today and in the future. Tracy, next slide, please. This just gives you a really good month-to-month comparison of how our employments were impacted by COVID. And you can see there that the worst of it for us hit April through June. The last 3 months, we've been hovering down about 55, 56%. And we're hoping that's not a long-term plateau, but a short-term plateau. And that as the entire nation begins to open up, we see both private travel and business travel coming back. Next slide, please. So this gives you an idea of where passenger planes are going when they depart the Tri-Cities Airport. So we've got quite a few destinations that are still active. So Delta and Alaska into Seattle. We also have Salt Lake, Denver, Minneapolis, Las Vegas, the Phoenix Mesa area, and seasonally to Los Angeles. This summer, we expect that we'll be able to offer direct flights to Chicago. And we're also pleased to be welcoming new seasonal flights to San Diego that were just announced by Allegiant. And I think if you hang tight with us in the coming weeks and months, we might have new great announcements as well for additional passenger traffic options. Next slide, please. There we go. So our business parks are an important part of what we do, and the Airport Business Center is a great new flagship development area for us. And one of the really cool things about that is that we have numerous lots that are available both with direct access to the airport's taxiway or without access to the taxiway. And that will allow us to diversify the development there around lots of different business types, including restaurants, hospitality, hoteliers, and commercial retail development. A1 Hospitality opened the Courtyard Marriott at the beginning of the year, just in time to experience the COVID impact. But we're hearing great things from folks who are visiting the Courtyard or even going there to dine. So I think that that's a great anchor for the development of the Tri-Cities Airport Business Center. Additionally, the port constructed over on the aviation side a hangar for Battelle, and Battelle operates the atmospheric research program for DOE. So they moved from an old existing hangar on the east side of the airport into this new high-tech research hangar at the Tri-Cities Airport Business Center. Tracy, next slide, please. So the Foster Wells Business Park, which we developed in 1995, is now sold out, which is a great, exciting thing to be able to say. We have a number of companies that are there. You have the Second Harvest company, which supplies area food banks, the Rock Placing Company, which are landscape boulders, and Volm, who's doing packaging equipment for area food processors. And then on our next slide, a number of companies that have recently developed or preparing to develop. So Pioneer Packaging, a regional wine packaging supplier. They're going to be building a 50,000 square foot facility at Foster Wells. Callie's Welding and Fabrication, that's an example of a local business that outgrew their existing location, and Foster Wells provided them a great new home. Finally, you've got Kenyon Zero Storage, their existing 400,000 square foot cold storage warehouse across the street wasn't big enough. And so now they have a new 200,000 square foot cold storage facility. Kenyon's one of the top taxpayers in Franklin County, and they're storing ag products that are grown and processed here. So they're a great connection to our existing food processing community. Next slide. And our newest development is the 300-acre Ryman Industrial Center, which was purchased by the port in October of 2019. We're currently in the process of working with all of our partners to develop up the infrastructure to make this a shovel-ready project. And we also have several legislative funding requests in place. And then if you could go to the next slide. The great connection and the reason for the name Ryman Industrial Center is in honor of Ron Ryman, who was a tireless advocate for the Washington ag industry and also served as a commissioner for the port. And in this dedication photo, you can see his family, Rella, Reese, and Anastasia, represented here with the group, including Executive Director Randy Hayden and our port commissioners. We're currently working with the City of Pasco, Franklin County, the PUD, and TRIDEC to get this industrial center ready to go for our first customers. We've had active interest in the facility already. Next slide. Osprey Point is a beautiful place. I love looking out the office window at the waterfront. It's the potential for one of our most exciting pieces of development. We're currently working with a private developer to get Osprey Point to the next level as a master mixed-use facility. Our vision for this property has been to have a blend of office, retail, residential, and restaurants, all while enhancing our public waterfront and access. Next slide. And we're currently working with JMS Homes, who's a Tri-Cities-based developer who's working on a transformative plan that you can see here in this conceptual layout. It's a really exciting time, and it could bring a tremendous amount of new attractions to this part of the Pasco region, including a 60,000 square foot public market, waterfront hotel, indoor and outdoor entertainment, theatrical productions, as well as waterfront condos. And the last thing I want to talk about, if you can skip 2 slides, Tracy, I want to make sure I point out too that we've also been doing some work in the Connell area with the North Franklin Visitor Center. And this building, which used to be a doctor's office, has been completely renovated and restored in partnership with the City of Connell and the Connell Chamber of Commerce. And the center is going to become their visitor center to increase their ability to promote the businesses and community activities that are available in Connell. And that, Carl, is my update from the Port of Pasco.
Thanks, Stephen. That was a really good, great overview. And I really appreciate the North Franklin Visitor Center. That's good to know that, that you guys are partnering with them to be able to have that kind of a facility up there.
Yeah, I think it's a great new addition for the Connell community and a great way to be a gathering place, a focal point too.
Totally. All right, we'll go to Miles next. As we said before, Miles is the Director of Economic Development and Government Affairs for Port of Benton. Miles, I think Tracy's going to go through some slides for you too.
Yes.
All right.
And, apologies for a little delay there. That was, of course, the best time that I just had to cough, but in any case. So yes, the Port of Benton, we utilized a good portion of 2020 to really shift our focus from having to be very reactionary to a position where we could be better planned and better suited to respond to some of the things that were going on in the community. I'm really thankful to our port commissioners, President Jane Haggerty, Vice President Robert Larson, and Secretary Roy Keck. They really allowed us to, This was not a less busy year than any year in the past, but they allowed us to really utilize the time that we had shifting our focus to different projects so that we could come out of 2020 in a better strategic position to manage our properties going forward and come up with some kind of creative ideas about how we could utilize the remaining property that we have and invest our assets in service to the taxpayers that support all of our efforts in the community. So my title slide here shows the Vintners Village Development Building in Prosser. We finished out 2020 having leased all of the spaces in the Vintners Village Development Building. Watoma was our first tenant open in the building alongside Prosser Economic Development Corporation, which takes the end cap. But Sister to Sister opened their second Prosser location, Sister to Sister on the Ave, a retail store, boutique retail store, and a small bakery in the space next to Watoma. And Jason Domenico is putting the finishing touches on the other end cap to open Domenico Winery in the development building. We're really happy to have this space filled. It does give us a lot of it gives us a lot of opportunity to think about how we're going to develop the rest of the Vintners property. And I'll touch on that a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of pull back and talk about how we really utilize the year to market the opportunities going forward. If you could, Tracy, next slide. So having closed out a large portion of our property vacancies, we're really looking forward to marketing the opportunities that come along with recruiting businesses to land throughout the Port District. We launched our new website in 2020, which is focused on showcasing what not only the Port has to offer, but what we have to offer as the Tri-Cities. And a lot of the really exciting announcements that we think came out of 2020 were the I'm going to get this wrong, Advanced Reactor Demonstration Projects, or ARDP, awarded by Department of Energy. Thanks, Carl. So the ARDP projects, both of the selected companies that won the awards to do their demonstration projects have a relationship with Energy Northwest, and therefore a relationship with North Richland. It's going to be a really great opportunity for us to work with them as they get their businesses essentially more established and settled here, so that we can work to recruit accompanying businesses that are part of the supply chain for this nuclear reactor demonstration project, and really have some new opportunities in new nuclear throughout the community. Next slide, Tracy. So in furtherance of recruiting some of those accompanying industries, we worked with the City of Richland to launch discoverrichland.com. Discover Richland is a landing page, a couple of landing pages, frankly, featuring available property, industry news, statistics, and collaboration opportunities for our target sectors in North Richland. Next slide, Tracy. So this page that I'm showing now, this is just one of the industry sections. This is clean energy. Really speaks to some of the data behind what the community has to offer, and touches on all of the projects that have kind of come to fruition as a result of the work that the whole community has been doing around recruitment. And I'll touch on another piece of that later, but the North Richland sites that we have been preparing over the last few years will be a really big portion of future land available for development sites and industry production sites. Next slide. So our planning efforts all together bring us over to back to the Port of Benton's website. We do have quite a few properties for lease, including some of the properties surrounding the Richland Airport, and up north Richland, we have approximately 70 acres available for industrial development. This is really our effort to work through this year to tie everything together more simplistically and more targeted to what we want to promote. It's a long process to put all these pieces into place, but we think we'll be better for it having a really cohesive strategy. Next slide. So one of our planning efforts culminated in the development of another website. This is more tourism focused, but we launched crowbutte.com, the new website for Crow Butte Park, which the port manages in South Benton County. This website allows all of our campers to register online for their campsites, much like the previous site did, but far more simplistically and with contactless reservations and purchasing of parking permits, day use, and launch passes. This was quite a project to launch, but we are so glad that we selected Underground Creative, which is based out of Kennewick, as our partner in developing this website. In the first 5 minutes the website was launched, we had 200 visitors simultaneously. That basically that group coming online knocked the website immediately down, and Underground jumped into action and reallocated resources for us to bring it back up. And we booked a third of our annual reservations in the first day that the website was launched. That's about 345 reservations in a day.
Wow.
So we're really happy that we moved through that and that we had the help of a really knowledgeable company, a knowledgeable startup company at that, to help us move through and have something that worked really well for our visitors. Next slide, Tracy. So our actual land and site planning process is really the work that came out of 2020. When we began developing Vintners Village, we looked at maximizing the number of sites for how much we could get out on, how much we could develop this area. We shifted this year and had a site planner really help us understand what we could utilize the different sites for, and we maximized them, making them a little bit larger, but even losing some of the acreage, we shifted things so that we could focus more on what was realistically available. And I got my note to move on, so I'll jump to the next slide. This piece is in central part of North Richland in the Tri-Cities Research District. We began looking at some of the pieces that we could bring together to develop the property that we received quite a few years ago from the Department of Energy, from the federal government, Department of Energy, to be able to bring more flex industrial space onto the market. So again, maximizing assets, planning forward, making sure that we're positioned to bring what the economy is demanding in flex industrial space. Next slide. The last piece of this is really bringing together for that North Richland development that will support the advanced reactor demonstration projects. The City of Richland and Port of Benton received land from Department of Energy. Now we're really focusing on bringing sewer infrastructure to the site to make it readily available for 150 acre plus site development. And I do want to add a little piece to this. So I'm going to go next slide and tell you a little bit about what we're planning. We are looking at developing some of our own flex industrial space, units as small as 1,000, 1,500 square feet in size, high bay doors, and small office spaces. This has been a significant demand from the private sector. but the economy of scale just hasn't been there to develop this sort of property with those small units. We have a letter of intent to develop some space that will allow us to at least start off this building and provide us with an economy of scale to develop additional units that could serve the private sector industry. Last little piece, sorry, Tracy. I did want to mention that we are currently going through our Richland Airport master plan. We started 2020 with maximizing the potential development to the highest and best use. And now we are reaching back out to our airport partners, users, and residents to bring that back into a focus plan and doing realistic improvements that could be accomplished in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. The flex industrial space, I think, is really great. You know, other communities that I've lived in, I've seen that kind of a concept for that. And it seems like in almost every case, especially when you have growth like we're having, you know, you start off like, okay, there's whatever, 6 or 8, 1,500 square foot spaces. And then as like one company ends up growing, you start knocking out walls and they, you know, just end up taking over the whole thing. That's a cool concept.
Yeah, and it really helps us to be ready with this letter of intent on the initial, I think about 7,500 square feet, because it really makes sense for us to be able to do the additional units and, you know, pre-plan to have drains in the floor, pre-plan to have it be really flexible for a variety of users.
That's great. Well, we'll get into some questions. We have a couple for Tim already based off of the video that you had, Tim. There's a question about, do you have any, or what type of architectural review process do you have for Vista Field to make sure you don't have any outliers? And I think, you know, obviously just a design standard that you guys go through for any type of new construction. Do you have a process in place for that? And how does that work?
Sure. Yeah, great question. At Vista Field, you know, we have the master plan, which is a very, very thick document that essentially covers everything with respect to Vista Field. And then what we've done is we've worked with the city of Kennewick to get a development agreement in place, meaning that neither side will change the master plan for a decade. So that's the foundation that we have. But when you have builders and developers interested in your property, you don't hand them the 1,000 pages and say, you know, go read through it. So what we're doing is we're peeling that down. We'd like to get to about 20 pages that we can have spiral bound or have it on our website where people can get access to that. And we'd say these are really the heart and soul of the regulations. And we will have our design standards in there. We've already got those as part of the master plan. So it will be very clear from the outset what a builder developer would be looking at. And here's what I say to people. We've had a lot of interest in it. And I say, you know, you folks should interview the port and we'll interview you, because a really good project is one where each side says, okay, I know the strengths and weaknesses of the other, and let's shake hands and I think we can go forward. So it needs to be full disclosure, because for the builder that just wants to build a strip mall, this probably isn't the property. There might be too many hoops for you to jump through, but that's by design. And it's not that we don't like strip malls. It's just that, again, we have to have a meeting of the mind. So we do have those processes in place. We have something called a collaborative design process where we will sit down with the builder developer early on and we start with some sketches. And that way we don't waste anybody's time. If we can't get it right in a couple hours, you know, then we move on. So we do have the detailed process in place, but we typically want to make it easy for everybody, because builders are good at building. They may not be that thrilled with reading through 1,000 pages to figure out what it is we want them to build. So great question.
Yeah. You know, the next thing that's on my list is infrastructure. And I think that's a pretty common thing that we've all talked about today. You know, Tim, you talked about the investment that the port made in conjunction with the city and county on Vista Field to put the infrastructure in place first before you can develop it. And Stephen, you talked about some of the infrastructure that you guys are working on to get it where it's needed up at the new Ryman Industrial Center. And Miles, you know, same thing with some of that former Department of Energy land that was transferred. let's open that up. I think in general, people see work going on for development, and there's just like this assumption that infrastructure is there, but maybe just go around and have each of you talk about how important it is really to have that infrastructure in place, even to be able to go through the process to get the land ready for reuse, and why it's such an important role that the ports play in Washington and here in the Tri-Cities. And I don't know, Miles, you want to kick this one off?
Sure. I do want to kind of jump back and focus on something that, Tim was sharing about the field. As we go through this process, planning is probably the most important part of what we do. And in service of infrastructure, we're in a very unique position. Tim with Vista Field, his team with Vista Field, they're planning something that is a rare opportunity. It's reuse of the center of a city, developing something that is going to be a game changer for the whole community. Same thing for Port of Pasco with Osprey Point. It's one of the last remaining undeveloped waterfront pieces of property. And same with Port of Benton. We have about 14 acres of waterfront property up here in North Richland. And yeah, it may seem to some that we're being a little slow and monotonous in getting to the point of developing these properties, but we're preserving it for the community. We're doing the right thing for the community. Anybody can come in and develop a strip center, but we're putting this thought in place and this level of planning in place to ensure that the community gets an asset that once it's gone, we can never get back, not without extensive cost. But in order to get there, we also have to plan for the cost of infrastructure. We have to bring water, sewer, electricity to support all of these developments. And without our partners, we wouldn't be able to do that. Especially for some of the projects that we're looking at right now, they're on the periphery of the city, or they're large industrial parcels that had never planned to have water and sewer infrastructure like they need now. And we've got to work together and find creative financing solutions to bring the infrastructure for developers to connect to. One thing, and I think all of us will have a little bit more to say about it, but tax increment financing passed the House this week. And that is going to be another tool in the toolbox for us to use to finance public improvements that generate extreme opportunities for economic development. If somebody wants to take the TIF question, I'll let you guys talk more about it. I'm talking too much already.
No, it's great. And I think I'll just jump in real fast and just point out that the point you made, Miles, is really good, and that a lot of times we think of ports as just these industrial and developers, which I think here in the Tri-Cities, each port has different properties and has kind of a mix of properties. But the developments that you just talked about, Vista Field would be a great example. Osprey Point would be a great example. Is economic development, and especially I think the role of the ports, is also about the quality of life and creating this sense of place that as a community we need. Like when we're recruiting maybe industrial companies, maybe technology companies, maybe energy companies to come in, their employees, their management, their leadership, the people that we work with all the time, they want to know what it's like to live here, and to have these kind of facilities available to us is huge. And so, economic development that we all work in and work together and partner on, it's such a broad field. That quality of life and creating those really cool places that we all choose to go to is really critical in what we're doing. So that's a great point, Miles. Stephen or Tim, you want to jump in on the infrastructure question and kind of the quality of life?
Sure, Carl. One thing I want to say is I agree with you 100% on quality of life. Sense of place is a key attraction when you're talking to a small business or a large business or an industry. And we get a lot of different questions around what's available for our employees if we move to your community, what workforce development is there, what workforce training is there. everything from good schools and great parks and quality places for entertainment and extracurricular activities like the outdoor life that's available in this region. They all play key when an industry is looking at your community. I'll use the Ryman Industrial Center as my infrastructure example. We've completed a master plan with a third-party engineering firm who's done a great job for us. And what they've provided us, among other things, is a look at what is it going to cost to bring all that key infrastructure to the property edge. What will it cost to build out the interior of 300 acres? So for example, water, sewer, fiber, rail, and roads to get the Ryman completely ready to the property edge is about $15.8 million. To do that and do all of the interior development, we're looking at a $35 million price tag. You just don't do that on your own. And so the beauty of this region is the partnerships that are available when you add the city of Pasco, Franklin County, TRIDEC, PUD, Cascade Natural Gas is working with us really well right now. And so you assemble all of your partners and you make a plan. Miles is absolutely right. The most important part is making a great plan and putting that time in on the front end before you are going 100 miles an hour trying to find that next great company to land in your community. Yeah,
for sure. And Tim, I might set a question up for you based on that planning comment, which is exactly right. But I think for Clover Island, didn't you guys just go through, or maybe it's still open, but that kind of a master plan or kind of community involvement for some redevelopment on Clover Island that is part of your planning process?
Yeah, exactly. We are wrapping up the master plan, and I used to call it the Clover Island Master Plan, but as you mature and a process matures, it kind of takes on its own identity. And this is the Kennewick Waterfront Master Plan, because not only are we looking at what's going on the island, but we're also getting to wrap in our properties that we have along Columbia Drive. So we call it the Waterfront Master Plan. It's been going on since fall, and the exciting thing is it's about ready to wrap up. One of the neat things is when you stand back a little bit and allow the community to jump in with all of their ideas that they think that the port ought to pursue. And that's kind of the amazing thing about a master plan done right. The Waterfront Master Plan was one of the only one I've ever worked on that you have to do it all virtually because of COVID. You used to fill the rooms with 50, 75 people and have them go around and take the marker and write it down on the whiteboard, so to speak. But this has all been done virtually, and we've essentially tripled the amount of participation over what we would have anticipated. So it's wrapping up. It's going to be unveiled to the commission and the public in kind of the rough draft format so people can challenge it, which is an amazing part of any process. Challenge it, ask us to revise it, ask us to rethink a few things or to praise it, say, hey, you got this right. We'll do the last little bit of tinkering with it, and then it's a master plan that's ready to go out and actually be implemented.
That's great. That reminds me of an article I read this morning, actually, on, I think it was US News and World Report, where Washington's the #1 state to live in, or the best state. So I got it kind of confused, but I think that's, exactly what you're talking about. Going through these planning processes, adding the infrastructure, developing properties as the ports do, is such a critical part. And a lot of this article and the state being the best is obviously focused on the west side and technology, but I would say here in the Tri-Cities, we're seeing rapid growth, and it's really part of that same dynamic, of what it is like to do business in our state, these projects that you guys are focused on and working on. And really, I think it's really cool to hear each of your stories that during COVID, things didn't really slow down. You kept on doing what you normally would do. You use technology to kind of bridge that in-person gap, move forward with the processes, and then, got things ready to go. Because I think we're all seeing an increased amount of activity on companies that are looking to move here. And obviously we know residential construction is booming. There's not enough land or properties for people to really move here fast enough. So we're down to about 8 minutes. So maybe I'll just add a little couple short questions, and then we'll get into some closing comments. But really appreciate this discussion today. You know, each of you guys did a really good job in letting us know what those key projects are at each of your ports. And, you know, on behalf of TRIDEC, it's just a relationship that we really appreciate, and a partnership. And you know, I think that we all have a good team, and it's great to work together. But I want to give Miles a couple minutes to talk about Tri-Cities Research District as being one of the things that Port of Benton has, and kind of its role within, you know, economic development. Miles.
Absolutely. So, you know, COVID has given us yet another chance to kind of redefine and synthesize what the research district does. So the research district, the Tri-Cities Research District, is a nonprofit collaborative organization based in North Richland. Does have defined boundaries of about, I believe, 2,400 or so acres in North Richland. But I would say we really don't let those boundaries define what the research district does. So in 2020, we have reconvened our board virtually. We've met monthly, and frankly, it's brought more people to the table because finagling meeting in person has given a lot of people the opportunity to attend meetings that they wouldn't have time for all the time in a normal year. So it's worked really well for us. And I think that the research district this year, the big outcome of our discussions has been that we are a convener, a resource to a lot of companies located throughout the Tri-Cities that are interested in our clean energy, agribusiness, and research and development target sectors, learning how they can collaborate better together, learning what resources they need to be most effective to recruit new businesses. And frankly, it's been an opportunity for us to really reach out and make sure that we're including the broader economic development community from all of Tri-Cities, not just North Richland. You've participated in that group, Karl, and I'm actually curious what your perspective is on what we've been working through in 2020 and some of the opportunities that came out of ARDP.
Yeah, no, I you know, as a new board member on the research district, I'm still learning a lot about it. I think it's a unique opportunity for us. You know, I think just the term research district, right? Like I think of the Research Triangle in North Carolina, you know, where there's this connection between education, you know, research and development, and then companies that are focused in sectors. I think it's just a great opportunity for us, and I think that having it gives us the opportunity as we move forward to, just like you said, Miles, go through a planning process, you know, see what the roles of the district are, and then maybe add some stuff to it. I wanted to get to one more question for Stephen on the airport, and maybe Miles too, if you want to jump in on it. Jim, you know, your airport's going in an awesome direction. It's going to turn into this really cool downtown center, but just in general, aviation between the Pasco Airport, Richland Airport, what do you guys see as some niches? Like we're obviously, you know, we all know what's going on with Boeing and the state, and that you know, major huge employer in our state has changed and is changing. That might not be the opportunity for us in the Tri-Cities, but what do you think are some opportunities, you know, at airports that maybe we could draw in that sort of draws on our strengths here in the region? Stephen, you want to jump into that one?
Sure. This is a great question. It's great timing. I actually sat down yesterday with our airport director, Buck Taft, and we looked at the map and said, what's available to us. We've been doing some outreach to Department of Commerce. I think that the Tri-Cities Airport is a great opportunity for niche and boutique style aerospace, whether you're talking about unmanned aerial systems, or you're talking about manufacture and assembly of small electric planes. I think there's a lot of great technology out there. We just need to, we're at the dream stage at the moment for what we can do with a couple of 100 acres. And the next step's going to be the feasibility and the planning. But I do think you'll see the Port of Pasco and the Tri-Cities Airport really make an effort to create a diverse group of aerospace related jobs in the next 10 to 20 years at the airport.
I'll echo Stephen's sentiment on some of the, unmanned aerial operations. We've set aside a portion of our master plan to designate some land for electric aviation. I think the Tri-Cities, both airports in Richland and Pasco, but also the Prosser Airport, are all in really unique positions to host some electric aviation research. With PNNL doing energy storage research, there's a lot of opportunities for cross collaboration in advances in electric aviation. And it could be that next niche, not only for Tri-Cities, but for Washington and being a leader in that aerospace sector.
Yeah, oh, that's great. And I think just seeing some of the concepts that are out there, they're talking about electric aviation might not be like an electric 737. It could be like a one-person aerial taxi, right? So I think that's maybe the tie-in with Vista Field is you could have this really cool condo downtown Vista Field and be picked up in an aerial taxi off the roof or something, right? And then go over to the Pasco airport to get on your Alaska flight to Seattle or something. So
yeah, Carl, I think you're talking about Air Uber right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Opportunity.
That's our connection between all the airports. Well, as usual, I've gone too long and talked too much, but let's go around and give each of you guys a chance to make a closing statement. But thanks again for your time. I think this is a really good discussion. Again, we really appreciate the partnerships that we all enjoy and being able to work together for Team Tri-Cities. Tim, you want to kick us off with some closing remarks, and thanks for joining us today.
Well, yeah, thank you, Carl. These are fun opportunities that you provide the community. I know you have another exciting one a little bit later in the day. So I want to thank you and TRIDEC, and Tracy is an amazing resource you've got. She's just tremendous, like your other staff members. But I want to kind of give a shout out to Miles and Stephen. First, Miles, thanks. I think everybody's got the flavor that we work really well together. There's a little bit of competition, but there's more cooperation than anything. When Miles was with City of Kennewick, he was very instrumental in helping us with the Vista Field Master Plan. So Miles, thank you. And I think it's important to get some cross-pollination, as you might say, because Miles has a pretty good idea of how things were done in Kennewick. Now he's out at Port of Benton. So it's great to have Miles on board. And Stephen, you and I haven't met personally yet, but again, I like what you guys are doing there. And we need to connect a little bit more because, again, we all try to help each other. And I do want to give a shout out here to your developer, GMS Construction. I know James, he did a little project for me at my house. I'll tell you something, James is top shelf all the way through. So if you see him, tell him that I give him a shout out. And you guys are doing some exciting things over there. Just really neat to be part of our community right now. So thanks again, Carl, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Tim. Stephen, you want to go next?
Carl, I think the greatest thing and one of the attractions for me when this job opening came around is the opportunity to be in an area where there is a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of teamwork. You've got great opportunities at the Port of Pasco, and the OSPREY Point development is something to be completely different for us at the Port of Pasco, a whole new type of development experience. But at the same time, my onboarding over the last 4 months has been helped by Coffee with Carl, because I'm getting to meet people, I'm getting to hear things about the region. I spent 17 years in Adams County, and so I had it pretty well figured out. And the other great thing is Tracy and Miles and Gary Ballou and I, when we were doing the trade show circuit, we'd end up across the aisle from each other or see each other at the same shows. And so I think it was great that I had a bit of a connection here, and I'm super excited to be moving into the Pasco region and putting down roots.
That's awesome. Well, Stephen, thanks for joining us today, and welcome to the team. I'm the other new guy, and I'm going to keep on calling myself the new guy until somebody says I'm not. So
12 months, Carl. You get 12 months.
Okay. Well, I'm past that, so I guess I'm not the new guy. Miles, you want to take us home on a couple closing comments?
I don't know, 6 years on, I still feel new. So,
Okay.
But it's so important that we all do collaborate as frequently as we do. I've known Stephen in my various roles in Tri-Cities and Tim for a very long time, and bringing us up to speed and setting some standards of service to the community has been so beneficial in integrating with the Tri-Cities. I do want to say, I think the theme of all of our planning efforts over the last year has been public participation, or at least aspired public participation, which the Port of Kennewick really set the standard for in their work on Vista Field and Columbia Gardens. And even this year with their work virtually on the waterfront planning. So continue to participate in your community planning efforts. It's what demonstrates what you're going to have available to you in the future for your own quality of life. And visit each of our websites, because that's one of the first places that we advertise those opportunities to be a part of the process. And thank you, TRIDEC, for all of your efforts to convene us more I can't even think of the word, but thank you.
No, you bet. Miles, thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us this morning. We do have another Coffee with Karl, as Tim pointed out. Thanks for the shout out, Tim. At 1 o'clock, we'll have our higher education outlook with Chancellor Haynes and Dr. Woods from CBC. So it should be a good conversation. Join us then if you have a chance. And thanks for tuning in today for Coffee with Karl and our economic outlook. You guys have a good day. Thank you.